All right, everyone. So, as we're recording, welcome to Saturday Escape with Dressler Detours. Colonel Hall here about Normandy and everything related to D-Day and our May trip, trip May to Bayeux. And you're up for a treat. So, thank you for doing this, Colonel. And enjoy the ride.
All right. Good morning. It's always a treat for me to talk about this. We've been to Normandy 5 times. Every time they're sold out. I tell crowds, or I ask crowds, what do Michael Bublé, Taylor Swift, and I have in common? And of course, well, aside from dashing good looks, it's that we sell out every time. And I've been so pleased with that. And I will share with you this morning some of the things that we did the last visit. It was relatively typical in one way, atypical in another, and in a marvelous way. How can you not put this picture up? We stay at Bayeux. We go out jogging in the morning for those who want to come, in the morning before we have breakfast. And there's this gorgeous marsh. You look back, you see the cathedral. The sun, of course, is coming in from the east on the right. There's so much manageable moisture in the air that it sort of does a prismatic effect and gives that pink glow to everything. That's a nice way to start the day, and that's Bayeux. A lot to digest on this one picture, but there's a lot to digest in the town itself. If we had to choose a central location plus just a marvelous town, we couldn't have done better choosing Bayeux if we had gone to central casting at Paramount and said, find me one. The city is beautiful. The restaurants are great. The people extraordinarily friendly. And as you look at this, just from left to right, that's where we stay. That's the Hotel Domaine du Bayou. Moving down, this particular teaching place takes place at Pont du Hoc, walking through the city, water mills. It was a mill town, a tanning town in times past. So there's many water wheels on the water. Not far from Omaha Beach here that you're looking over. The top main picture is perhaps my favorite of all. It's teaching at water's edge. More about that later. But we do things like that. A marvelous restaurant with Madame Lily, who runs the place. Perhaps the most beautiful apple dessert I've ever seen, and it was tasty on top of that. Apples. This is the Calvados region of France. They're famous for apples. They make an apple brandy that is très good. Pam and I visited one of the distilleries. When you're in a room with your wife for 54 years, surrounded by casks of brandy, you know it's going to be a good day, and it was. So other scenes around that neighborhood, you can't look and find any place that's just not engaging. The one you saw just a moment ago, I call it the perfect classroom. And I'm bragging a little bit. Everybody doesn't go to the gift shops, but a lot of tours do, but we don't. We go there, you'll see it in just a moment, to honor, to learn a lot, and to have a great time doing it. This particular picture, Pam took it. D-Day executed on a Tuesday morning at 6:30 at low tide. Every now and then, all the gods smile at you. And one time when we were over there, low tide occurred at 6:30 in the morning on a Tuesday. If I'm lying, I'm dying. And you can't miss that. These people got out of bed certainly at 5 o'clock because we had to get on the bus for a 30-minute drive to it. And we're standing at water's edge where those troops came ashore 6:30 in the morning on a Tuesday at low tide, and we're holding class. It's the way we do things. If I say to you, it was really meaningful to be there, that's just me talking about my own product, and I don't mean to brag about it. but I'm telling you, you can't be there, standing there, talking about it, learning about it, and not have it be a very meaningful experience. The objective for the way we run this tour: to honor, to learn, to enjoy. I think you can clearly make the case it was the finest hours your U.S. military has ever had. 4,415 allies died in the 24 hours that defined D-Day. We believe that you honor people by learning the history and telling about them, and we do that. We go to great lengths to have the tour group learn about what they're going to see. Once there, we engage. You'll hear me say that word a lot. And we do lots of preparation, and anybody can do those kind of things. But I think the trick is to do it in a way that people enjoy. They look forward to the events that we do, that we tell them about. And when we've had an engagement exercise, I know this is going to sound self-serving, but we hear all the time, nobody does it like that. We've never heard of anyone doing it that way, and that's kind of music to my ears. And I hope that doesn't sound self-aggrandizing, but we go to great lengths to make that happen. What is a Dressler detour on D-Day not? Well, it's not this. The D stands for drinking. No. We can have a good time, but this is not how we do it. This is not a Dressler detour to Normandy either. We have fun, but that's not the real focus. The real focus is to make sure that this doesn't happen. And how many times it's happened to you, it's happened to me. You're on the airplane going back, and you find yourself thinking, I had a lot of fun, but I didn't really learn much. Bummer. I think I'll go back now and read a whole lot about it. We do. We get smart, and we always wish, darn, I wish I'd done this before we went over. This is what we don't want. And I've done it. I suspect you've done it too. It's not a case of do we learn or do we have fun. That's a fool's mission if all you can say is one or the other. We want, when you get off the airplane in Salt Lake City, to say, I had a great time. I never learned so much, so fast, so easily as I did on this trip. And that's what we try to do. I have to tell you, I think we do a fairly decent job at it because it's been sold out 5 years in a row. There's Bayou. To achieve those objectives that I just told you about, we usually arrive on a day one, and I think that will happen this time. We work the beaches from east to west. The Normandy invasion occurred over a 60-mile stretch of beaches. We start at the extreme east and work our way west. We start at Caen on day 2. Wednesday, depending upon the tides, we go to Omaha Beach. We go to Arrow-Manche, the artificial harbors. Most Americans have no idea what happened at Arrow-Manche. It's an astounding feat of engineering. It's one of those things, when you get there and you do it and they see it, the number of times you hear, I had no idea. And I said, well, that's why we brought you here. That's why we teach it. The German cemetery is moving for certain. Pont du Hoc. You see it in films. We see it with our feet on the ground. And the American cemetery at Normandy, I probably use the word moving a little bit too much, but if you're not moved, particularly the way we do something different. And if it doesn't move you, I don't think you're movable. I don't mean to sound tacky in that, but it's an extraordinary thing to do. We end up at St. Mary Glees. You've seen that in Band of Brothers. The St. Mary Glees Village and the Utah Beach Band of Brothers was all about that neck of the woods. And on the That's what we do on day 6. The marvelous thing, you unpack one time. We spend minimum time on the bus, max time at the venue, and no one likes to spend 2 hours in a bus for 30 minutes at the site. It just doesn't work that way, and we don't let that happen. Before we go, we do lots of preparation. I give you books to read, things to view. There's a lot of good preparatory information out there. There's some that's not so good, and I try to steer you away from that. I prepare, and all team members receive a trip book. It's detailed, and yet at the same time, it's user friendly. It's tabbed. So I wrote it from your perspective, as I thought it. Really smart people who know something about what happened, need to know more, want to know more. That's my target audience, and everyone gets that. And we're going to talk about some of the contents of that in just a moment. Everybody asks me, well, will all the stuff in this book be on the final exam? And the answer is no, not all of it. Most of it will, but not all. There's 1 or 2 points that I missed, but most of it's going to be on the final. Reading and viewing. The longest day, it's been out there a long time. I saw it in the 7th grade. Very, very, very good film. Very good book. Band of Brothers, the segment on Day of Days is extraordinary. And of course, pretty much everyone has started out their reading. I did years ago with Ambrose's D-Day. It's a very good starting book. It's what got me in this business. I got that book at the airport going to California one day. I didn't have anything to read. I read it and I couldn't stop. That was 17 years ago. And I've read nothing but World War II history and D-Day, and walked every foot of the beach from east to west. Well, we actually went west to east. That's how intriguing the book is. So those to prep us for when we arrive. Pam and I go over 1 week in advance of the tour group. We do that advisedly. If you can see me, look right at me and pay really close attention. We walk every path you walk. We make every turn. We see every landmark. We go to every museum to make sure that they're ready for you. The last one, now after all the years over there, when we go into a museum, they look up and smile and say, "Oh, Professor Hall, you returned." And I said, "Yes, we are returning." But we do that advisedly. People on the tour didn't pay for bad surprises, and we don't like bad surprises. We don't want those to happen. If there's a road that's under construction that we didn't know from here, we're not going to take that road. We're not going to have you sitting there waiting for an hour en route someplace. So it's a busy, busy, busy week, but Pam and I wouldn't have it any other way. When we're at Bayou, one of the things that was almost ad hoc on the first tour and was successful beyond belief, a thing we call post-mission debrief and pre-mission planning. We originally scheduled it for 30 minutes at 5:30 on one afternoon. We didn't even begin to get it done in 30 minutes. Nobody wanted to leave. And finally, we had to remind them, you folks have dinner reservations at 7. We're going to have to stop. But we did it every day. Madame Nadej, our host at Domaine du Bayou, puts out marvelous snacks for when we get off the airplane, the bus. Everyone's a little bit hungry. When the weather's nice, this was the first trip. You sit out under the willow trees in chairs, or inside a really nice dining room. We do that more often now in the dining room, but you can do this. And we just ask each other questions and we explain things. Turned out to be tremendously successful. Madame Nadej requires me to tell you, she doesn't put anything in front of you to eat or drink that's not local. The apple juice, we've been to the place where they squeeze the apples, and she makes sure the cheese is local, the bread's local. It's a very a strong point of honor with her. I only give you a food from Calvados. So, Madame Nadege, I have given you proper credit for that. So, a lot. So, we're doing post-pre. Steve, I didn't understand the tide rush. I had no idea it was that big, that high, says someone. So we talk about that, things that we have done that day. We go around with a group, and it is a fun conversation. I'll always say, all right, are we good with what we did today? And the folks say, yeah, we're good enough. And of course, they know they can ask something later on, but yeah, we're good with that. I said, all right, let's talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to Pont du Hoc. When you get off the bus, this is what I want you to do. And we prep that, a preview of coming attractions. In the military, we would call it pre-mission prep. It's been, as I said, very, very successful. The plan that you will receive, it looks like a trip book, but it's really not. It's an operations plan. Everything is in a military format. You receive an operation plan. It's something different that defines the tour that we take. I don't know of anyone who gives something like this. It lets you read before you depart. It has a tab for every day, so you know what's going to happen. You can sit there on the bus as we drive to a place. It's designed so you flip to day 2. There's point papers. There's pictures, things that help you as a last minute prep, because you've had plenty of time to get ready, but as a last minute prep before we arrive at the destination. At the very back of the book is the itinerary. Everybody wants to know what's going to happen when, and when they have to be ready. We've changed formats many times. I think this is the best format we ever came up with, and it's the one that we'll use. But no one likes to ask themselves, so what do we do tomorrow? And you don't have to do that. We have once or twice a person has gotten lost and separated. So on the book, it says, this is where you're staying. You just show it to a policeman and they'll get you back to the hotel. We lost 2 people, but we found them. But nonetheless. And in the right-hand corner, this book belongs to Stevie Hall. And you can put your name there. But it turned out to be very helpful. It lets people see where we have to be when, because timing at public venues is very important to the French. The first, there's a tab on what I call the top 10 takeaways, successes and failures. It's the first part of the book. If you couldn't read anything else, that's a good thing. And I'm going to step through these somewhat quickly. We don't need to go into great detail on each one. A tab that summarizes with a chronology, with pictures, evaluations. I like D-Day by the numbers. 5 beaches, 4 generals, 3 services, that type of thing. The command structure, who was the boss for whom. There's a separate tab for that. And as you look at the document, you can see these are pretty digestible, and that's how I tried to make them for you. Readings, we've talked about that. I expand on the readings and then give some. I like pictures a lot. I think people like to see, they don't like to read. So I try to make things as visually appealing to you as I can. And you'll see some of the pictures. We asked the question, why didn't the German use the Panzers? Well, that picture paper has the answer there. Bios. You can't talk about D-Day without not talking about not understanding Eisenhower, Bradley, Rommel, Montgomery, and de Gaulle. You have a point paper on each one of those to help you understand those folks better. That's sort of preparatory background stuff. Then for each day, to make sure this doesn't happen, you get a a day-to-day tab. It's if you can see me, if I'm lying, I'm dying. My commitment to you, no one will ever get off the bus and say, "So why are we here?" I shudder when I think of someone asking that. Instead, they're going to charge off that bus. Oh boy, I read the O plan. I know what this is. I know where we are. This last trip, we had children with us that was beyond spectacular. I know I'm sounding hyperbolic this morning, but the kids were spectacular. When those kids jumped off the bus and said, Colonel Hall, this is where they did this, that, and the other, because they'd read the book. And I'm telling you, it was so exciting. I just get giggly, and colonels don't giggle, but I giggle when I think about how good that was. This is what we're looking for. We will take you day by day. The sequence of days can change because it's all built around being at Omaha Beach at low tide. If you go at Omaha Beach, not at low tide, we miss a lot, and we won't do that. Arrow Manche, less known, but certainly dependent upon tides for a good presentation, tends to kind of drive whether we go there on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. When we're lucky, it's Tuesday. But I can control a lot of things, but I can't control the tides. The picture I just brought up is Omaha Beach with no tide. I'm sorry, at high tide, because there is no beach. It's not there. At low tide, this obviously is an afternoon picture, but it's low tide at that same beach. You can go out and have a class out there. As you step through the book, you would turn to tab 1. This is the day that we show up in Bayou at Domaine du Bayou. Easy papers to help you understand the town a little bit, where you're staying, so you don't get lost. We don't want you to go out the wrong gate and then we don't find you, well, for a half day. The second day, starting from the east, we go to the Pegasus Bridge. We visit arguably the best museum in Normandy, the Calm Museum. Sword Juno Gold Beaches, that takes place at the extreme east end. And you can see the papers behind there that let you easily prep yourself for what you're going to see that day. That's what it looks like in a map. We start at the extreme east, work to the west. It's a full day, it's a full day, but it's a really good day. Omaha Beach, day 3, usually plays out that way. We go there at low tide. You have the papers that you see here. It lends itself to pictorials. I like pictorials. They're on your tab, and absolutely no reason to not arrive at that beach. Probably understanding more than 95% of the people who will see it that day before we even set foot on the beach. You're going to know that. I just know it because we've done it 5 times. Arrow Manche, we combine that. That's the artificial harbor with Bayou, as in the Bayou Tapestry. We visit the museum. It's extraordinary. We have a walking tour with Miss Christine, otherwise known as a lady in the green hat. Does a marvelous walking tour. The cathedral in Bayou. We try to carve out that entire half day as a free time in Bayou, and it works out very well. The team lead, not me, I'm the academic lead for D-Day. In this case, Christoph will, as prep for the Bayou Tapestry, which recounts, of course, of the Battle of Hastings and the Norman invasion of England. That prep is done for you. It was done by Christoph. Did a marvelous job. An excellent speaker, knows the subject. So when you go into the museum, again, as is our wont, it's something you're really familiar with. The German cemetery we go there for an even-handed look at the history. It's not apologetic for anything. It's a dark cemetery. Literally, the crosses are dark. They're not white like you see at the Colville, the Normandy American Cemetery. We didn't go there the first tour. Someone asked that we add it. We did. It's been a great stop ever since. The even-handed nature with which the Germans and the French handle that. There's a small museum attached to it. Even-handedness, I think, is the word that continually comes to mind to give you a good picture of the history of what took place there. Pont du Hoc just screams by itself because it's so visual. It's the cliffs that people climbed up. It's a great little visit. The American Cemetery at Normandy. When we took the first tour there, and I'm the one who did it, people got off the bus, and it was sort of, there's the cemetery. So we walked around and looked at crosses and were respectful. But I knew instantly. I said, "This is not right. This is not enough. This is too important a place." So, and by that's on me. I should have seen that all those years ago, but I saw it, and we went back, and Pam and I together did some research, and we've come up with an engagement event. No, I will not share it with you, but it's meaningful. It's touching. When we do the post mission about the visit to Normandy, to the Normandy Cemetery, most people can't talk about it. I have to read. They have some papers they'll give me, and I'll read what they would have said because it's that moving, and it deserves it. The folks who died there, I always say, we honor them by showing up. There is not a doubt in my military mind that they know we're there, that they know we're working hard to tell the story, to understand what they did, and they're happy that we're there. There is not the slightest doubt in my mind on that point. I include some pictures here just to show you for a teacher of history such as I, teaching the what is really exciting because it's a marvelous story to tell. But when you get to sit on a stone encasement at Pont du Hoc and talk about Pont du Hoc to people who want to be there and learn, it doesn't get a lot better for a teacher than that. It doesn't get much better than that for me. And we do a great deal of that. Day 6, we go to St. Mary Église, possibly the best open air museum in all of Normandy. The Caen Museum is indoors. The St. Mary Église is more open. The displays they have, the things you can do. You can suit up in a parachute harness and be lifted up a few feet off the ground. That's pretty exciting. It's spectacular. And we end up at Utah Beach, the one that's well documented in The Longest Day, and documented also Lieutenant Dick Winters in Band of Brothers. The last stop we make is the Dick Winters Memorial. As you leave Utah Beach, he was a spectacular leader, done well in the film. And if you want to leave thinking about one thing, thinking about a great leader is a pretty good thing to fill that square. And that's how we end the tour. Day 7, we always have a marvelous stop en route back to the airport for a French lunch. We've had them by the Seine. We've had them at marvelous little villages out in the middle of nowhere that Nadej recommends to us, and they're just a really sweet way to get us back to the airport. The goal, Dressler Detour's goal, certainly my goal, is to have great fun and to learn a lot. And we just have to achieve both of those. we do that by learning the history and by presenting it with activities, with engagement that are meaningful to a really smart audience who's experienced success and failure. You know the difference. Young college kids don't. Folks like you who want to learn a lot about arguably the greatest day in the U.S. military and the greatest feats of leadership you could probably describe, and that's our goal to you. I don't think I've said this before. My wife doesn't like me to say it, but I will. My promise to you is when you get off the airplane, wherever you get off of it coming back, if you can't say, I've never had more fun, learned more, and learned it faster than on this tour, I'll pay for your ticket. She always says, oh, stop saying that, stop saying that. But I hadn't had to buy a ticket yet. But that's my commitment to you. Bayou looks just like this in the morning early. It's yellow limestone. You go out jogging, and that's a nice way to start the day. And that's what I have for you with the Normandy tour. And I suspect I'm just a talking face. If we can take questions, things to discuss, I'll certainly do that.
Stephen?
Yes.
Robin Lizentz here. How are you doing? Just great.
Yes, yes, yeah. Oh, now I see. This is good.
Okay. So when some of the movies and the books we're familiar with, and I absolutely love the entire Band of Brothers series, do you think the historicity of, is there one that seems to be more accurately portrayed than another? I mean, is The Longest Day, that traditional movie, is that a fairly accurate portrayal? I know Band of Brothers seem to be pretty much on the mark, but what are your thoughts in terms of accuracy of the way it's portrayed?
Oh, it's a marvelous question. Thank you. The Longest Day is very good. Now, when we're talking films, by the nature of film, it's going to be a little shallow. I mean, you only have so many seconds of script that you can say. The Longest Day was very good. Both the book, by the way, Cornelius Ryan, who wrote the book is excellent to read too. So yes, Band of Brothers, Day of Days. It focuses, as one would think, on the airborne operation. There were two on the American side. It focuses on the 101st. I'm rambling now. The Longest Day focuses on the 82nd Airborne at St. Mary Glees. Band of Brothers focuses on the 101st around Sainte Marie du Mont and down by Utah Beach. So a long answer to a short question. The things that the viewing and the books that I put out to you are very good. They're credible. They're citable. I do it. If I were doing this at home, you would see the racks of books behind me that I have on this subject. But the ones that we recommend are very good. You don't really, at this stage of the game, if there's bad history out there, it doesn't get much play. So that's a long answer to a short question. The ones that you mentioned are both very, very good. And there's a lot more that are really good too. But if you had to do anything, Rick Atkinson is a phenomenal author. Balkowski does 2 books. They're excellent. And without my wall behind me, I can't remember all the other ones. But is that remotely responsive? I feel like I just rambled on you.
No, we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
So I have a question, Charles. A lot has been made about the importance of the weather for D-Day, and could you talk a little bit about that from all your reading and research?
Well, sure, but if I tell you, then you won't come. I mean,
Well,
gee.
we have to wait a year.
Sure. The weather, Eisenhower said, if the weather's bad enough, they'll defeat us without firing a shot. The weather was absolutely essential. We delve into that a lot. It's interesting. If I ask you right now, define the perfect weather for the D-Day invasion, I'm pretty sure I'd know what you'd say. By the way, I'm not giving you a pop quiz. You don't have to. And I don't think it would be right. The weather was essential. It completely fooled the Germans. There's a thing I call the weather war, and we talk about that. When John Kennedy, many years later, asked Eisenhower, what do you think our greatest advantage was that made D-Day a success? His answer was, sir, and you're going to love this, we had better weather forecasters. Of all things, he didn't say we had better airplanes, we had better ships, we had better tanks. He said we had better weather forecasters than they did. So your question is absolutely on point. And if we're lucky, we can be sitting with a glass of Calvados brandy, some cheese and bread in a bayou someday and discuss it in detail. That would be fun.
I agree.
Is that responsive at all to you, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So, hi. Well, thank you, Colonel Hall. That was awesome. Thank you so much. If there aren't any more questions, I just wanted to thank everyone in the room. And I actually wanted to say there's a person here, Randy Stewart. He's known as Unknown currently on our screen. If everything goes to plan and we get a good group together and we're heading to France next year, Randy will be our co-director, and he is actually our main director for our Greece and our Aeolian Islands and Sicily tour, because he's our classics professor. But he's also a very avid military buff, and in fact, he just visited Bayou this year. So there he is. And I just want to let you know how, we talked about those 8 children that were on our trip. I wrote a little blog.
Christoph,
Yeah.
may I interrupt for just a second? I want to make one correction to what you just said.
Okay.
I'm certainly not going to be the co-director on the trip. I'm going to be the guy who pays the bills and makes sure people get to the bus on time and make sure people know how to get a towel for their room if they don't have enough towels and they can't figure out how to do it themselves. But in no way am I going to do any kind of educational stuff or lecturing or talking. I'm just going to go and I did this trip as a participant in, what was it, 2023. And I loved it so much. I told Steve at the end that I loved the trip so much that the highest compliment I could give him was I wanted to go back. And as Christoph just said, I did go back on my own just in September. I spent about a week in Normandy, going to not all of the beaches, but some of the beaches and some of the museums. And when I heard that there would be a possibility to go on the trip again as a team leader, I just jumped at the chance. So I'll just be there kind of behind the scenes, making sure things run smoothly. But all of the directing and educational stuff will all be done by Steve, and he does such a fantastic job.
Okay, fair enough. I was just jumping into the next topic. We did a little blog on Dressler Detours website. So if you go there on the upper right corner, There is a link to the blog, and you can find a bunch of interesting stories, including some of the trips that we've done with Randy and Tanya. But the latest blog is about how we had those 8 young. It's D-Day Normandy through the young eyes of our travelers, because I was absolutely floored. Not only that. Colonel Hall here had the guts to say, okay, 8 children on board, let's talk about war. But what happened is some of our best travelers on those trips were those kids. Arnie, he's in 5th grade actually. Arnie, our 5th grader, found 2 mistakes on a plaque that is very important. I think it was Omaha Beach. It tells you how deep this kid was involved with this trip, and all the 7 others were no difference, and it was fantastic to see them and to be that engaged. One thing that Colonel Hall didn't say, we do a lot of mapping, so there will be tons of maps, and the kids were front and center on every discussion on who went where and why and how, and it was a very moving trip, and it made me on Veterans Day week, it made me think of all what we did last year, and it made me write this blog. In fact, Tanya kind of wrote it because she's so much better in how to say things. So if you want to, go have a look how this trip panned out for those kiddos. It went fantastic. So, well, if there are any questions anymore, I want to thank Colonel Hall. I want to thank Pam, who's of course always in the background and always helping. And and I want to thank my wife Tanya for letting me go last year and enjoying this trip. And
it was great fun.
It was unbelievable. And as a German, to experience this and to be over there and to be looking at this the right way, it was very moving for me. So thank you, Colonel Hall.
You bet.
All right,
See you later.
we are sending off. Everybody have a great weekend, happy travels. Yes, I just heard, unfortunately, Tanya's microphone is out, but next week we have one more presentation, and it will be done, and this time he will speak to history and things like that. Randy Stewart, will present on Sicily, I think, and the Aeolian Islands. So come and join us next weekend, next Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning.
We'll be talking about Greece next week.
Greece. All right, we're talking about Greece.
Get some sleep, Christoph.
I'm sorry, what?
Get some sleep, I said. I'm kidding.
Oh, yeah, I need it.
Bye,
Bye.
Penny.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And I need to find the cursor. No, it's right there.